In our Commitment 2010 coverage, we're looking at all things politics, and joining us this morning is political analyst and political scientist Neil Milner to talk about what's going on. Good morning, Neil, and thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
It's funny because a few weeks ago we were complaining that nothing's happening in the congressional race, and now everything's happening in the congressional race. And there was a new poll that just came out that showed that Charles Dejoux and Ed Case pretty much neck and neck, and that Colleen Hanabusa just a few points behind. What do you make of that new poll?
Well, there's actually two polls. There's the one that no one ever saw but was leaked, and then there was this one that was run. I think it suggests what it suggests what it says, that it really is dead even right now. Saying that a congressional race is dead even in Hawaii is really odd. You don't hear those words in the same sentence. And at the same time that it's dead even, it's becoming a national election in the sense of getting attention. The national media is coming out here to cover the story. It's being put in the context of dissatisfaction with Democrats and dissatisfaction with government. And so it's now taken on a kind of disproportionate importance. And all of that is going to benefit Dejoux and is going to benefit the Republicans. All of us have to remember, though, that the Democrats are still getting 2 votes for every one of Dejoux's 1, according to the poll, but that doesn't make any difference here because this is a special election, winner take all, and all anybody needs is a plurality.
And do you think that really voters are dissatisfied with things like health care as they are on the mainland, or do you think it's because you have 2 strong Democrats, Ed Case and Colleen Hanabusa, against each other who are splitting the vote?
Well, I think it's the splitting of the vote is really very important. You just can't get around that arithmetic. We also don't know very much about whether the voters in Hawaii are as angry as the voters are about the distrust in government and also disapproving of health care. But what we do know is that whatever happens here is going to be put in the context of these national things, about the dissatisfaction with government, about the high unemployment rate, and also about this recent poll that shows that people are more dissatisfied, more distrustful of government than they have been in years, and that's usually a sign that the Republicans are going to win the next election. So whatever is important, that's what's going to be seen as important.
Do you think that because the race is so close, according to these latest polls, that the Dtriplec, those national Democrats, will go ahead and endorse one of the Democratic candidates?
Well, they're sort of trapped here now. I mean, part of it was that they were looking at Case, I think, as the most feasible candidate. Our senior senator didn't like that. He tried to use his influence, but probably to stop the Dtriplec. Probably the most important influence is that now Hanabusa is doing better compared to Case, and also she's got a big load of money. So it gets harder for the Dtriplec to pick a candidate on the basis of feasibility.
Well, Senator Inouye just gave $100,000 to the Dtriplec, so that's got to have some sort of influence.
Well, it does.
Right?
It isn't that that simply buys influence, but it reminds everybody that he's loyal to the party, and that in the context of these other things that are happening, I think are important. Frankly, I think the $100,000 is less important than the showing in the polls and the fact that she still has a lot of money and has more money than Case does.
Let's talk about those sit-in protests at the governor's office. They finally came to an end on Friday, and 4 people were arrested in total. What do you make of this, and do you think that Governor Linda Lingle would have done things differently if it were an election year for her?
You know, it's a complicated question. The answer is probably no. She wouldn't have done anything different. And I think the reason is not so much what she is like, but the fact that this pattern was set way down the road before people even knew what was happening. Once we got into this furlough business, and once people suddenly discovered how bad furloughs were in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of the politicians, the parties were all pretty much trapped. And over time, it has become less close to being settled rather than more close. So she might have done certain kinds of things different in the short run. She might have acted differently toward the protesters. But I think the ultimate failure of the protest was that this is so locked in right now, and everyone is waiting to see what the legislature was doing, that I don't think she would have behaved all that much differently.